And we're live for Freaky Black Friday.
Freaky Black Friday.
Freaky Black Friday. We're going to answer all of your questions. We're going to have some fun. And Jim and I were just shooting the old breeze behind the scenes here, talking jujitsu, actually. So good day to you, sir. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
I had a fine Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to you and everyone else.
Yeah, Brendan has a question here asking how did we manage a stream on Thanksgiving? And we did do that. Jim.
There's only Thanksgiving for half the parties, though.
That's right. Yeah,
for Gavin, it was just Thursday night, right?
Yeah. So for Gavin, it was Thursday night. But for my family, we celebrate Thanksgiving very early. So we got up, we went to mass, went to the gym, then had just a big brunch. Went to my dad's. So our Thanksgiving stuff was pretty much done at that point.
Yep.
And I was stuffed, and just like Gavin talk about Aquinas' principles of nature. So
nice.
It wasn't that much of a task to do it on Thanksgiving.
So you know, principles of nature, because of Jeff Brower, who I still think is the most underappreciated analytic Thomist in America. That principles of nature was standard issue when I was at Purdue.
It should be. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, as it should be. It is a great entry point into the scholastic version of hylomorphism.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It really is. Yeah. And there's the Bobic edition.
That's the one Gavin was using. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he's, I think in the Bobic, it's appended with Aquinas on the mixture of elements.
That's correct. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a very good edition. I think if somebody wants, not necessarily the best introduction to Thomas, but somebody wants a introduction to scholastic natural philosophy, right? That is a very fine text. I used to teach that text in the our intro class at Benedictine is a course in basically scholastic natural philosophy. I used to use that text for years.
Mm-hmm.
Was in that class. Yeah.
There's no reason not to read it. I mean, it's short, it's slick, it's easy to get through. It doesn't mean you're going to understand all of it right away, which is why we're bringing it to the people here on Philosophy for the People.
Yeah.
But it's a phenomenal text. And if you want Aquinas doing pure philosophy of nature and metaphysics, he's really only got kind of two works on that. He's got on the principles of nature and De Ente. Everything else is really a work of theology, which is suffused with philosophy. But if you want his actual like philosophical treatises, those are the two that you really need to read and get under your belt, right? Mm-hmm.
And when I saw you and Gavin were doing it, like, that's a great idea. Good. Bully for you boys.
Well, hop in on the next one, man.
Yeah,
I didn't want to drag you into another one. I know we've got so many going on here, but that's cool to hear. So before we get started, we'll take gentle listeners. Please submit whatever questions, comments you have. It's fair game here on Freaky Black Friday. Philosophy, fitness, whatever. Just throw it at us. How was your Thanksgiving? What'd you do?
It was great. Mm-hmm. So what did I do? So on Wednesday night, on Wednesday night, I had trained really, really hard in jiu-jitsu. Had a really good night in jiu-jitsu. And so I ate, at like 4:00 in the afternoon, trained really hard in jiu-jitsu, got up yesterday morning, had pretty serious workout action. It was my double jerk day, and my 30 minutes of double jerks, did that. And then
I did a little bit of that action yesterday.
Nice.
For my workout.
It's a good way to go. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then did a pretty serious like as many reps as possible or for time calisthenic challenge kind of thing. And then continued the fast. It was cold out, so in the afternoon, at the height of my hunger, I went out and did like a cold exposure, like 5 mile walk.
Barbaric.
Yeah, totally barbaric. Came back, so at that, by the time we got dinner, we did dinner at night. By the time we got to dinner, I had been fasting for 26 hours.
Yeah.
And had like worked out really hard. And man, that is the way to do a feast, dude. That is the way to do a feast.
Right? It is only a proper feast when the fast precedes it, of course.
Yeah.
That's
amazing. I've decided for Advent, I am going to like double down on personal discipline.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Turn it into a mini Lent. Sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I can really feast at Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Very good.
My version of doubling down on personal discipline might be pretty sick, right? So
yeah. Well, I'm interested to hear how that plan goes, my friend. By the way, real quick, did you look at that little draft I sent you of that paper of the links between philosophy and jiu-jitsu?
Yes, I like it quite a bit. Yes.
Yeah. What do you think? Maybe we should talk about that, because there's some Anyway, for gentle listeners, I sent Jim a draft of a paper I'm working on that will probably be sent to Catholic Answers or something, where I'm addressing certain skeptics who say there can never be good or philosophical arguments because no argument is, what they'll say is like truly compelling. It never forces anybody to accept a conclusion. There's always a premise that somebody can deny, right, or something, which is true enough. But I'm like, this is like saying that there's no good submissions in jiu-jitsu, right? Because somebody can always escape. They can. And people might think, well, that's not true, but they can, because they can just let their arm get broken, right? Or they could pass out. There's always a way to get out of something. The question is, what is it going to cost you and how much tension is being applied? So I'd just like to hear your thoughts on it.
No, I mean, you can decide to be wrong, right? You just refuse to accept something, right? And I worry about this, a lot, where a lot of times what you see, and maybe we're all guilty of this, is you like a preferred conclusion of yours gets shown to be false based on your first principles, supposedly your first principles. So you go back and you revise the first principles, right? So really that conclusion was the first principle. It wasn't. It wasn't these other things. And I think that kind of ad hoc revision of our presuppositions goes on all the time philosophically. And I think it is to indulge sophistry. I think
it is. It is. You're right. And that's a good arguments can serve multiple purposes. They can serve to expose that, for one thing. But they, to me, a good argument is one that picks out a tension. And what it should do is it should offer a reasonable resolution by accepting the conclusion, right? And it's like a jiu-jitsu submission, right? The more tension it applies, and the less possible not costly escapes, right? The better the argument becomes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The more you would have to revise to avoid the argument is like the more you'd be hurt if you didn't have. Right. You know what I mean? Right. That's why like you'll see people, and I'm not recommending ever to hold out against submissions, right? But you'll see people more willing to hold out against chokes than they are joint locks, right? Because the consequences of going too far of the choke, though not good, I'm not saying do this, you're gonna it's not fun, but you're not going to the emergency room, right? Whereas holding out against a joint lock can result in the immediate emergency room trip, right?
Yeah, so it's just a matter of how much you're willing to pay to get out of the tension, right? In jiu-jitsu or philosophy, right? Are you willing to pay with a broken elbow? Willing to pay with passing out? Are you willing to pay with just being humiliated in front of your peers by looking wildly unreasonable? Right? It's just a matter of what's the cost going to be, right? Good. All right. Sorry, I just wanted to bother you about that. Shall we take some questions?
Let's do it.
Let's rock and roll, my friends. Whoa, I'm getting a whole bunch of spam popping up on my computer. Let me clear this. All right, here we go. First question from Catholic Based. Is time travel possible? Interesting question.
I mean, it may actually already be actual, right? I mean, I've read, examples where with very, 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 very precise clocks, having airplanes travel at like super high speeds, and then that very, very precise clocks that are synchronized, one on the ground, one in the airplane, and have airplanes travel at super, super high speeds, that you do get like very, very, very small asynchronicities between these two clocks now, right? I mean, my understanding is it's empirically been done, okay, but that's future. That's in a sense, right? Like time went faster, like that pilot is in some sense older than the people that are his same age. Okay.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating too, because then in some sense we're kind of maybe always time traveling in the future in some way, right? But the real question is time travel in the past possible?
That's right? I think the heart of it, right?
That's the heart of it, right? And there, there are paradoxes associated with it, but there's also, depending on your theory of time, some people have good reasons to think that it might be possible, in which case then the paradoxes have to be addressed. Like I will honestly say, I don't know.
I think if you have, my position is with a proper understanding of causality, if certain paradoxes can be constructed, which it seems like they can be, that would, because per se causality is always transitive asymmetric, right?
Yeah.
If you understand that, then you can have time travel situations that would violate that rule, and that to me would show that this is not metaphysically possible, right? Now, maybe there's some way of resolving those paradoxes. I haven't seen them, right? And we're talking like the bootstrapping paradoxes, right? That people are probably familiar with. If those cannot be resolved, then I think that there are metaphysical restraints. But it's the commitment to causality for me that does it, not a commitment to A or B theory of time. You see what I'm saying? Right?
Yeah, exactly. The thing, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is I agree with you. I think the paradoxes are pretty much decisive, but yet it does seem to be increasingly becoming like an empirical question, right? Of like whether this could be pulled off, in which case then it would seem like those metaphysical principles would be at some level, even metaphysical principles are revisable, right? To like ultimate pushback, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some of them. I'm trying to remember what some of them are. So there's the bootstrapping ones, which I don't see how those could be resolved. But there's the other ones. I don't either. There's the other ones where maybe you could resolve some of them by bringing in like a many worlds interpretation or something. You know which ones I'm talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
But then it's like it's not really you're talking about. This is like some other branching entity that's no longer.
So in what sense is it actually time travel? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
But I am pretty open, and I think I'm learning more and more, given other stuff I'm reading and thinking about, like how, pretty spooky things are, right? And it does seem that on a lot of these like current physical models, it seems possible, right? But I agree, like the metaphysical principles trump a model, right? Until somebody pulls it off. Right.
right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Right.
So this is a good general question of like, because I am willing to say, and I do think that metaphysics will restrain the possibility space of scientific models. It has to, right? Yeah. Now, how much and to what degree is a very interesting question. Right?
And assuming we got the metaphysics right.
Right. Yeah. So some big assumptions there. Yeah. Like this is one where I think it really does, right? Like I would be really, really surprised if somebody pulled off the types of time travel we're thinking, because I just don't think it's metaphysically possible. So any scientific theory that suggests that it is possible, and there are models out there that might suggest this, I would say cannot be a correct model because of deeper metaphysical reasons. Now, if somebody does it, then I've got something to worry about.
Yeah, that's
right?
Exactly. So look, I'm not betting on it. Right. Actually, I would bet heavily against it. But when it starts getting to the point where you've got models making predictions and stuff like that, that gets interesting. You know what I mean? Now, I would say this: even if it is possible, I hope nobody does it, because then, like,
we've seen the movies.
We're screwed, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, imagine if you could have people wanting to change the outcome of wars or something, right, by traveling back to change facts, right?
And
then like the other party would want to like travel further back to change those facts, and further back, right? And then if that's the case, then it turns out like simulation hypotheses turn out to be true, right? Like the whole thing is just like it's like a game being rigged, right, by these like future time travelers, right?
And it's
I think that is highly like likely not to be the case, but if it were, we're screwed.
And not only that, but another argument against time travel is just how bad time travel movies are conceptually. You know what I mean? It's like they just annoy me to no end, especially the latest Avengers. It's like, man, there's just so many holes in this. Like if you're just thinking about it, that's terrible. I think one of the better ones maybe was, what was it? Not Inception. What was the latest one by? Somebody remind me. It was Nolan's latest one. It was actually a pretty good film. And there's some time manipulation going in there, but they don't like think about it too much. It's just like, and I think that's the better way to do it. Don't try and give an explanation here, Hollywood. You guys have right. It's just going to annoy. It's just going to annoy Pat Flynn.
Stephen
Hollywood
King's,
does that anyway.
Stephen King's 11/22/63.
I bought it.
It's pretty good on this.
I bought it, but I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
Okay, good question. Fun one. Next one is another fun one. Is it ethical to torture robots?
Well, you can't torture them because they don't feel pain. So, you know what I mean?
Right. But I would say this: if you were confused and thought they could feel pain, then the answer would be no, because it's bad for you to act in that vicious type of way. So
I would even say destructive behavior for the sake of destructive behavior, right, is not good for you.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we can say, even though this question doesn't totally make sense, the answer is still no, definitely not it.
Yep.
Very good. All right, next one's on Schopenhauer. I just saw one of these funny philosophy videos, whatever that means. Is Arthur Schopenhauer the darkest philosopher? It's an interesting question. It's been a while since I've spent time with Schopenhauer. I would say he didn't seem as dark to me in certain respects as people that came after him.
Yeah. Well, and Schopenhauer has this view that ultimately art can play a sort of saving power for us, right? And so I would say no, he's not the darkest philosopher, right? He may be the grouchiest one, right? Like if you think it's the one of the
he's got that whole get off my yard type of.
Yeah, he really does. Yeah, like there's a I think it's the preface to the second edition of Will and Representation. He says something about how, like none of the reviewers bothered to read this thing, and if you
which is probably true.
Which is probably true. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I know how that works actually. Right? Okay, I've felt that too. Right. Okay, and he says, if like there's what's he say? We should read it on the air sometime because it's hilarious. He says there's two things you can do with a book. You can read it, and actually, like engage with it and learn from it and even argue with it, whatever. Or you can like put it on your coffee table to impress your lady callers along with your poodle or something. It's like hilarious, right?
You gotta love it when they get snarky every now and then.
Yeah.
Leibniz did too. He got a little snarky every now and then.
Leibniz was a grouchy guy.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, one more from Catholic Based here. Why did Heidegger say that only God could save us?
Yeah, I have to be careful with that. He says only a God could save us. Heidegger pretty famously would refused to. It's interesting. He said he refused to enumerate the gods, whether there was one or many, because he said it's up to the gods how many of them there are. Right?
he couldn't solve the gap problem in philosophy, really.
Yeah, or it was just for him. It was like this kind of act of like ultimate, like we need to be returned to kind of an ultimate reverence, right? So much so that we wouldn't even make a claim on God to say how many of them there are, right? But okay, why does he think only God can save? This is a long issue, but because he thinks that the technological attitude that we are in is a destiny. We're trapped in it. There's no way to think our way out of it, right? That and the point that he thinks part of that technological attitude is to think that it's up to us to save ourselves, right? And so the degree to which that we try to be the salvation that they save us from modern technological nihilism is a degree to like fall into like the very like trap of modern technological nihilism. It's still our doing. We're going to do it. We're going to make reality fit us, right? And for him, the solution is a kind of perpetual advent. Like, okay, like, it's a kind of like waiting. It's a receptivity, right? But being or God or the gods are going to have to. It will be up to them, right? But if you think of it, like the very idea that, hey, I can't fix this, therefore I have to wait for it, right, is to reject like the technological attitude, and thereby part of the solution. So sort of a kind of like our non-doing is our doing to find our way out of it, right?
Excellent. At some point, we will have to do a series on Heidegger as well here.
Yeah, especially it would be fun to do the question concerning technology, that essay.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope it's Black Friday, so I hope people are enjoying their techno nihilism today.
Yeah, yeah. By the way,
indulge.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're doing it,
right? right. Hey, I'm probably going to indulge myself a little bit later today.
Well, no, and this is the thing with Heidegger's critique of technology. He's not saying, hey, reject technology, right? Because once again, you're defining yourself by technology still, right? Do you know what I mean? And he thinks like to see it as like somehow I can just sort of like reject the devices or reject the techniques and thereby I've saved myself is his view is a kind of technological attitude.
It's already got its grasp on you.
It's already got its grasp on you. And his point is the technological attitude is to think we're running the world, right? Well, and so by admitting I'm not running the world and I'm stuck as a technological nihilist in many ways, is to say, I don't run the world, which is the very opening point to maybe something showing up to us. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Very cool. Good question so far, guys. Let's keep
Yeah.
rocking and rolling here. Here's a fitness one. Brendan says, how do you guys motivate yourself to work out every day? I fell off the get strong wagon. How do you build back better? Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have to motivate myself to work out every day anymore to have to motivate myself to brush my teeth. Right. I mean, for me, it is not whether I'll work out, it's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's just long habit. Right. So really, like, how do I get the habit? Well, at the end of the day, there's nothing more than you can do than just, when you don't want to do it, still go and do it. I have no other way. And like therein is like the mystery of human freedom, right? The St. Paul, right? Like, why do I do the things I hate and I won't do the things I love, right? Okay.
Damn it.
Yeah. And at some point, I find discipline really mysterious. I find it like one of the fascinating mysteries of human nature. Like, why is it that some of us can just say, you know what, I am not going to quit. I'm just going to get up and I'm going to do it. I don't care if it sucks. I'm going to do it. Right. And you could like look, maybe you could, find there was some way I was breastfed that led me to be this way or something, right? Whatever. Right. But I'm sure you could find outliers. You could find people who didn't have that background who still managed to do it. Right. So all you can do is, like, right now, if you skipped your workout, shut up, turn off the damn YouTube, go out in your backyard or the parking lot of your office and do 100 burpees.
And do some swings.
Do it.
Right.
Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim, your points are really good because, discipline is not something that's automatically generalized, right? We know people that are highly disciplined in one area of their life and complete slobs in another, right?
Yeah.
This is just not uncommon.
Yeah.
I think one thing that, because like you now, I've got the habit of exercise, right? And once something is a habit, you've got that disposition. So I don't really have to like amp myself up to go work out.
Yeah.
Oh, look, there's some days when I am more amped up than others, but it's just the habit. The only thing I can really say is, like, you need to attach it to something you really give a damn about.
Yes.
That, and I think for both of us, Jim, that first came from a source of great pain, right?
Yes.
It wasn't great pleasure or achievement at first. Later, I think we both became interested in what fitness can do for our martial arts and other things. But first, I gave a damn about really not wanting to be a fat slob anymore, right? Like I was like really like sick of being the chubby kid. I mean, we talked about our rock bottom moments on the other podcast. I won a wet t-shirt contest in early high school. Right. And for me, I gave such a damn about never wanting to be in that humiliating position again. Right. And that flipped a switch in my brain that come hell or high water, that is not who Pat Flynn is going to be anymore. Now, that was, of course, a greatly humiliating and terrible moment in my life, but great good actually came out of it. Right. And then later on, it wasn't just trying to avoid pain anymore. Now it was, I actually really enjoy this and I really like what it does for me. And now I'm into martial arts and now I see this as a way to enhance my performance to other things I really care about. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, it has to, maybe you can care about the thing itself, but maybe you just love kettlebell swings that much. I mean, they're fine, but to me, it has to connect to something greater that you really give a damn about.
100%. Actually, I had a big rant on this on IJ's show once where I said, look, I think if your motive is you just want to look good to pick up chicks at the beach, I don't think that's going to work, because
not long term.
Not long term, because, like, it's a meaningful cost benefit analysis between, like, the plate of nachos or the chicks at the beach. Like, you might just say, it just turns out I just want nachos more than I want the chicks, right? Okay, in that moment, right? And of course it depends on the chicks, right? But anyway, so, like, for me, it was I got out of bed one day and I was like, you're gonna, like, die young. And
what did you eat the night before? Wasn't it Sonic?
It was.
Tell us again, Jim.
It was the chili tater tots with jalapenos and cheese from Sonic.
This is the rock bottom moment.
And it was like a double order. This had become like my like the single order had become like my Sunday routine. That and like a cherry limeade. And then I had become such this is true though. Like, I become such an addict. The one order didn't trip the trigger. You needed two.
Right.
right? So I'm doing like 2 orders of like the chili tater tots with cheese and jalapenos
Love it.
from Sonic, man. And man, I tell you, I remember I had this night where I couldn't sleep because of what that had done to me, like gastrically. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I looked in the mirror and I said, look, you're a complete fat slob. You're going to die young and orphan your children, right? And if that happens to you, you have it coming, right?
And then you deserve it, right? Yeah,
I deserve it, yeah. And so I went to war, right? But still, I could have the next day said, yeah, I want the nachos, or I want the tater tots, right? But I didn't. I just said, no, damn it, I'm committed.
Yeah.
I'm committed. I'm committed.
And it's all, it wasn't just one connection, but it's all. I mean, connections to your children or anything are hugely motivating.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I didn't have that at first because I didn't have children that young.
Yeah.
But now my children
decided the kind of human being you wanted to be.
That's right. That's right.
And the big thing for me was deciding the kind of human being I wanted my children to be, and realizing, like, one, I need to be there to see to it, and two, they're going to follow my example, right? And if they have a slob for a dad, right?
Yeah.
I'm worried about where that comes out, and so it comes. I like to use giving a damn because that's like John Hogwin's from this Heidegger kick here. It's like Hogwin's way of translating Heidegger's notion of care, right? It is always our ultimate cares that are going to make the difference. Like, what is it that we really define ourselves by? What are the things that we give a damn about, that we define ourselves by, that are going to make the difference, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think like picking up chicks at the beach is enough of a care to really motivate you to go through the pain it takes to do this. It's got to be something bigger, something like a real commitment.
Yeah, 100%.
But I don't care what you're committed to. You got to every morning get up and pull the damn trigger, right? And I have no way to help you with that.
Yeah, and then Brendan, if you want to send me an email, I'll just send you some good basic routines, man. Low barrier to entry, just to get you moving, right? And that's the key. Like, don't put more things in the way of success than need to be there. Don't make it complicated. Keep it simple. Get on an effective program.
And this is something I actually go on about in Ageless Athlete that I think really screws people up. Is they'll see what, say, like they see like really hardcore like CrossFit workouts or something like that. Nothing against CrossFit, but as the example of what you should do to get in shape, right? And they think every time they go to the gym, it's got to be like that. It's got to be this like complete hardcore, beat down, magical moment, PRing kind of thing. And I always say to people, look, your workout doesn't have to be great. It has to just be. That's all it takes. And like, don't be afraid to say, hey, today I'm not gonna have much of a workout, but I'm going to do something, right? I think that's the key. Is like people, they set such a high bar of what, okay, I'm gonna go in every day and I'm gonna work out till I'm damn near puke, and I'm gonna like hit all these goals and all that. Great, but here's the deal: a lot of days it's not gonna happen, and you still should go to the gym, right? You still should do something. It just, the workout has to be. It doesn't have to be great. The great ones will come, but just do something.
To use a slogan, always something is better than all or nothing.
Yes, exactly.
By the way, the reason I look so goofy with my glasses slanted is Marin snapped my glasses apart. And I don't know if you can see the one side. It's literally Scotch taped together. So this is what we're working with today. So sweet Marin. Sweet Marin.
Sweet Marin.
Sweet Marin.
Love the kids. Love them.
Yeah. Oh, I should bring her down here. We do a little Marin show and tell before we go. All right. Scholastica wants to know, how do you deal with muscle soreness? Yeah, Jim, you got any secrets for us here?
I don't get a lot of it. At least not from. I mean, even jiu-jitsu, I don't get a lot of like your classic lactic acid, burn for 3 days after the fact, soreness, right? That, in fact, I'm trying to avoid that sort of thing in most of what I'm doing. Okay, so I don't get a lot of that. Right?
Yeah, I'm with you.
But I'll say that just in general, soreness, creakiness, day after training hangover kind of stuff, I find just a good, simple 10-15 minute yoga mobility thing in the morning. It makes so much of a bigger difference than people realize, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think people don't realize how bad they feel, right? Until they do that.
Until you feel better. That's right.
Until you feel better. Yeah. And so, now, man, I am very, very committed to just some kind of yoga, stretching, mobility work every morning.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, same or similar things. I don't do yoga, but I do a lot of just mobility work with kettlebells and body weight stuff. In fact, I love just the basic jujitsu warm-ups, like egg beaters with the hips
Yeah.
and stuff. Like that's
Yep.
amazing hip mobility work, right?
Yep.
Rolling, basic rolling is really
Yep.
good. But yeah, my training these days, I mean, if you've been training for a while, like you really have to like try and make yourself sore to get sore. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I could do it, right? If I just start doing a bunch of high rep drop sets, like I'll make myself, but that isn't like going to serve the purposes of what I'm training for at this point. So, you know, my sets, you know, like,
I want to
like,
see those traps though, man.
oh man. Yeah. I actually like, if I show you, I got some decently formed traps. But in fact, I would like them to deflate a little bit, to be honest, because they're a little clunky. But yeah, I mean, every once in a while, you know, you'll still just get the bite from a workout here and there. Like, okay, went a little bit crazier with the swings and yeah, just keeping up with the mobility, windmills, get ups, body weight, calisthenic stuff, Hindu push-ups, Hindu squats. I had the foam roller out the other day. That's still, I think, a fine tool. So yeah, just keep moving, keep basic, and then, you know, just being intentional about your training. Unless you're like really trying to lay down the muscle tissue and doing a lot of the bodybuilder type stuff, I would argue that your training doesn't need to, and probably more often than not shouldn't make you all that incredibly sore.
Exactly. I agree.
Anyways, right.
Mm-hmm. And also, by the way, Onnit has like a $10, like very good, just basic mobility program that I think if you're utterly like clueless on how to like develop in that way, I recommend that.
Yeah. Callum says, have you heard of the disaster, the cowardly, the outrageous scandal to turn Notre Dame into a museum? It's fit for children, not for worship. Oh, you're going to break my heart, man. Is this, I know I have not heard about this.
I've not heard that. Yeah.
I know there were, what was it? Reconstruction plans after the fire. Right. But as soon as, I mean, I was never optimistic that it would be,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it may just be culturally honest, right? I mean,
right. I mean, why keep pretending, right? There's a church by us, a very old, beautiful Catholic church by us, and it's been abandoned in Pewaukee. And you know, some corporation wanted to come and knock it down and put up a bunch of high-rise apartment buildings, and like the whole town's like, "Don't take down the church; it's so beautiful." But it's like, none of you guys go to church.
Exactly. Yeah,
like you want the church to stay around. Go to mass, right? You're
Yep.
the reason it's abandoned in the first place, right?
Yep.
It's like, so like, you know, as much as I want to fight for the church, right? I want it to be for the, like, just a building, right? It's kind of missing the point, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, Nicholas says, what do you guys think about Blessed John Duns Scotus and his philosophy? Yeah, I'm a fan of Scotus generally. Haven't spent as much time with him with Thomas, of course, but yeah, some of the Scotistic. In fact, I was just rereading Matthew's Grant, who borrows some various thoughts from Scotus in one of his recent books. So,
I mean, look, let's say you're a Thomist, right? And is it like your worst nightmare that your kids are going to grow up to be Scotists? No, right? You know what I mean? I think, disagreements between Scotus and Thomists are, these are disagreement. These are like literally internecine struggles. Like these are disagreements between reasonable people, right?
Yep. Thanks. All right. Donut Hole says, do you think Nietzsche was right in saying that Buddhism is a type of nihilism? No, not because, I mean, Buddhism is a broad camp, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember this reference from Nietzsche. Maybe you do, Jim. But if that's what he said, it's highly unnuanced, right? I mean, there's just different camps of Buddhism that have many different commitments in terms of how they think of the human person, and even if and whether there's an afterlife and what that looks like. That it would just be far too quick to just. Now, some schools of Buddhism, I think, very much do border on a sort of, I would call it like a poetic nihilism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, okay, you guys kind of are nihilistic, but you phrase it in ways that makes it seem not so bleak. But that's not all Buddhism. Mm-hmm.
We have to attend to what Nietzsche means by nihilism, and he doesn't just mean pessimism, right? What most people mean by nihilism, they mean pessimism, right? That like I think a lot of people think what nihilism is the idea that life doesn't work out very well, right? And that's not what Nietzsche means by nihilism. But what Nietzsche means by nihilism is it is the denial of the value of the real world of like concrete experience, like the real world that we live in as organisms, right? And that's why he sees Christianity as a form of nihilism. He sees Buddhism as a form of nihilism. He sees, like he would see like our modern consumerist attitude, right, as a kind of nihilism. Okay, he sees all these things as nihilism because none of them really value the like what he calls the like they don't ask us to be loyal to the earth, as he says in Zarathustra, right? Which would mean not they either see the earth as something to be consumed, or they say the earth isn't enough for us. We have to find our meaning somewhere else. Okay, and like what ultimately is Buddhism? In some of its variants, I'm not an expert on this. It's like it's this denial, right? This denial of emotion, of passion, of of the tragic sense of things, right? For the sake of this overcoming it in a nirvana, right? Okay, and it's that sense in which Nietzsche would see Buddhism as nihilistic, right? Not just like its pessimism, not just its denial of afterlife or something like that.
But it's escapism, yeah. Right?
Yeah. And moreover, it doesn't allow you to like really love anything, Nietzsche would say, in the concrete sensuous world. And this is his critique of Christianity and Platonism and all these things, that he thinks that they deny us the love of anything in the concrete sensuous world, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and say what you will about that, okay, but it's not, so when you worry about like Nietzsche's critique of Buddhism as nihilism, it's the same critique he says about the Enlightenment, right? And Christianity and Buddhism and Platonism. They're all of a kind for him because none of them allow us to be like really, really committed to and passionate about and loving the concrete sensuous world. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just wrong.
Yeah.
About certainly, yeah, we would say I would argue he's wrong about not just Christianity but Platonism as well in that respect. But that's an important clarification on what he means by nihilism. And that links to the next question, which brings up Schopenhauer again. Scholastica says, do you guys have any thoughts on Schopenhauer and his philosophy? We kind of shared a few just a little bit ago. Good grouchy old man, get off of my yard type of thinker. Like I said, it's been a while since I engaged with Schopenhauer. Like we're talking like early college, so I just do not have his work fresh on my mind in any significant respect.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember, Pat. I went back through the World's Representation. Was it last winter? I think it was. So like this time, and Schopenhauer was a very important thinker to me, and I think Schopenhauer's critique of Kant is extremely important. I think his aesthetics is extremely important. Ultimately, we should see Schopenhauer as a kind of Platonist, in my view, right? And I think that's very interesting. So, I think Schopenhauer is a very important thinker. I think he ought to be read, right? But yeah, I mean, that's a very big picture, right?
Read him. Read the damn book.
Read the damn book. Yep.
Yate says, what should I do to deal with my inner atheist? Because sometimes this feeling just pops up unexpectedly. Yeah, good question, right? What do you do when you're just struggling existentially with doubts? Jim, what sort of advice? And if we're being honest, like we all have this, right?
Yeah, and I guess I also want to know, like what do you mean by your inner atheist, right? Is it your like worry about, because once again, a lot of our questions we get, I think, are always not always, many of them are confusing, like commitment to a particular organized religion as opposed to theism, right? Okay. And if you're worried about your commitment to a particular organized religion, well, yeah, that's an act of faith, right? And you know what I mean? If it wasn't dubious at some level, it wouldn't be an act of faith, right? So that is like perfectly normal, right? Okay. And now the question is, like, in terms of theism versus atheism, are you seeing your theism as an act of faith? Are you seeing it something that is, the product of some kind of rational demonstration? If the latter, and you're feeling doubts, right, then it's time to revisit the arguments, right, and ask, like, what not just your feeling, but what's the actual reason you're having for these doubts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah, I'll say a few things about this, right? I've said it before. I'll keep repeating it to the point of it being annoying. The reason I'm a theist is because I'm not a radical skeptic. Those to me are the options, right? But when like, like the ceiling questions, right? The stuff that keeps me staring up at the ceiling are questions not between theism and atheism, but whether reason has any grip on itself or reality at all at times, right? Like to me, it really is that radical, right? Which of course, radical skepticism is not, let's make it clear, is not atheism, right? It's just radical skepticism.
Right.
So to me, like if we're just kind of talking personally, those are always the more, I guess, haunting, interesting stuff. Yeah, and like Jim said, like what do you do? I mean, when we talked before about philosophy and jujitsu kind of being similar in a sense, but I think there is an asymmetry because when you're like a really great philosopher, you kind of always can anticipate what the other guy's moves are going to be. And, sometimes you even lure them into making certain objections like you would do in jujitsu or any martial art, right? If you're really great and you're always like 10 steps ahead. The difference to me is this: in jujitsu, there can always be a better opponent. But when I'm being honest, when I look at philosophy of religion, that is not the case with theism and atheism. I mean, I think it is night and day clear. Like theism just so far outstrips atheism in its rational plausibility. It's almost ridiculous, right? And not every position is like that. Now that might seem like a horribly arrogant or condescending thing to say, but as somebody who's spent many, many years into literature on this, like if you go to the so-called end of the peer-reviewed rainbow, I just think it's like, I just don't think the God question is the most difficult question. I really don't, at least not anymore. It was difficult for me at some time. Yeah. I think there's many other questions where it's like, okay, now there's more moves to make. And, you keep going back and forth and back and forth. I don't think that's the case when it comes, like, I think theism is decidedly, decisive in terms of the metaphysics, in terms of the cumulative case, in all of that. So I think what I'm offering there is like, if you do the work and roll up your sleeves and you go to the end of the peer-reviewed rainbow, I think you should have a lot of confidence. Yeah. I think you should. And I think you should not be afraid to do that.
See, yeah. So I am not even interested in the article industrial complex at any level anymore. Like
I know you're not.
I'm not even interested in like going to the end of the peer-reviewed rainbow anymore. In that, if you look at the founding texts of anything we can recognizably call philosophy, the question was not whether there is a God or not. It is the question of what is it.
That's right. Figuring out the nature of God.
Figuring out the nature of it and what bearing it has on us. Right. And so that's why, I mean, I'm not terribly interested in natural theology. I don't feel a need anymore. I have been in the past. I don't feel a need anything deeper than Plato and Aristotle's reasons, much of which are implicit, really, for thinking that there's deity, that there's divinity, right?
It's funny, man, because I just reread Leibniz's ultimate origination of things. I'm like, this guy's right? He's just right? Yeah. I mean, it's like, yes, there's been millions of responses to Leibniz, but at the end of the day, like, you just still read his basic contingency argument, and you're like, this is right.
And once again, it cannot possibly be the case, I think. So it can't in any probability be the case that if there is divinity, right, the only way we could have certainty about it rationally would be, to go down the rabbit hole of the article industrial complex, right? Do you see? It just seems to me like, really, you think that like we have to get to variance of S5 to know divinity, right? No way, right? I mean, as much as I love to play those games at some level,
right.
I've come to the conclusion these are games, right?
Right. But could you have, this is because I agree. Yeah. But would we have come to that conclusion if we didn't go to the end of the rainbow, wherever it was at the time? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like what I'm getting at is like, yes, that's absolutely true. But would I advise myself back when I was 18 or 20 to not do that 10-year? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm not
right?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I would advise myself to do that again. Right. And if I had been better trained earlier, I might have not done it. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah, no, it's a sincere question.
It's a sincere question. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. I do think though that there is something to me, this is your point, that said that like there are ladders you have to climb for the sake of pushing them away.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting question. I hope that's helpful to you, Yate. I've just been thinking so much more about especially Catholicism and epistemology lately. And I just like, dang, man, there's just such a good fit between if you get a good epistemology and a human anthropology and you understand the need for tradition and institution and how essential this is to human nature and knowing, like, it just really makes sense that on things that are also really essential, there might be some like infallible charism on that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like it just fits like
Yeah.
really, really well. So I've become a bigger fan of these befittingness considerations in a very broad sense these past couple of years. Anyway, let's keep moving on here. Lots of good stuff.
Brendan, a nice reference to Bouncing Souls. So
I don't know that band.
it's an old like 90s punk band that I enjoyed quite a bit. Yeah.
As similar as we are in some musical taste, Jim, we do diverge.
Yeah, we
quite a
do
bit.
diverge. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, I'm sorry.
I'm just such a damn Gen Xer.
All right, who's your top 3 '90s punk?
Oh, punk bands.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like a lot of the British Oi stuff, like The Business, Sham 69, um, early Dropkick Murphys. I like the Murphys in general, but the early one,
Mm-hmm.
when Mike McCougal was still the lead singer,
Mm-hmm.
and his band Street Dogs now, right? It's those first few albums when Mike was still leading the band, when they were a Oi punk band at that point, right? Now they're basically a rock and roll band, which they're a great rock and roll band. But the early stuff like Third Man In, that stuff, that I think that was like one of the high points of like, Oi punk. Yeah.
It would have been fun to have you on the stream I just did with Eduardo and Alex because it was all on music.
It was really
We'll
cool.
do that. We'll do another one of those. It's those are just self-indulgent streams. I don't know how to pronounce this. Bjaringan, maybe. Apologies. Wants to know, hey guys, I started watching lots of Jackowilling stuff, and I was wondering if you can say his philosophy is totally pissed to nominalism, since there's patterns in the military that apply everywhere. Interesting. Jim, I know I don't read or watch much of Jocko's stuff, but I know, Jim, you made the interesting point one time that as much as people might want to think he's a Stoic, he's actually an Aristotelian. So maybe you want to just say something about that quickly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just because I think, and once again, I don't want to be unfair to Stoics, because I think there's caricatures of Stoics, right? But I think a lot of people say they're Stoics, and I'm not sure that Jocko has said that, but people say that about him, right? It are actually Aristotelians, because Stoic is trying to absolutely minimize their commitment to anything beyond their control, including their own emotions, right? And whereas Aristotelian thinks emotions are not in and of themselves bad things, but they need to be cultivated and managed so that they can be applied in the right situations. And for an Aristotelian, there is a perfectly good place for rage, right? There is a perfectly good place for rage. There's a perfectly good place for, just some good old Eros, man, right? You know what I mean? Some fun loving, right? Okay, there's a perfectly good place for this stuff, right? And so it's not that like the emotion has to be like distanced and checked away from always. And actually, sometimes they were going to say you should just let yourself be in it, right? Because that's what's appropriate at this time, right? And I take it Jocko is a man who can have a righteous rage, right? And sees as right. I think he's probably a guy who could have some righteous eros, right? And have some those sorts of things, right? And that's why I think like he's probably more Aristotelian, who sees emotion as something to be balanced and cultivated and applied, not something that we need to distance ourselves from, right?
Right. I was trying to pull up a quote from Aquinas, who essentially says the exact same thing, but it has I can't find it on my phone, so that's how it always goes. All right, next one. Oh wait, sorry, missed one. Nate wants to know, Jim, how, if at all, have your thoughts changed on philosophy of mind since our first interview, which, Jim, I think was like almost or
like
maybe
a year to
even
the day,
a year to the day now. Yeah, man, it's crazy.
Oh man, I'd have to go back and look. I think probably not that much. I think my views and philosophy of mind have changed in significant ways since my first book, right? Um, and for me, my philosophy of mind is I hope, like an ever moving recovery from Cartesianism, right? And that's what it is.
It's like Newman's like ever like our constant need to recover from liberalism. That's how Newman feels about that, right?
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I you know what? I want to go back and re-listen to that first one.
Yeah, I should go.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, it'd be a interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're you know what? And we're gonna do hopefully soon here just an introductory episode on philosophy of mind as well. So keep an eye out for that.
Maybe next week we'll go ahead and uncork that. That's easy to do. Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, Brendan has double header here.
Time for like one or two more here.
All right, let's do one or two more. Well, we'll do Brendan's here, and then you can pick the last one, Jim. He says, "Is philosophy the highest form of knowledge, and how would you defend philosophy as a discipline against those who think that it's useless, such as Dawkins?"
Let me take the latter first. Aristotle and Plato define philosophy as precisely useless. So, okay, right. So I'm not too worried about that, right?
Granted, right?
Yeah,
but let's qualify what they mean by useless. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, in some ways, though, I don't think it's that much different than what Dawkins is saying, right? I mean, if you're looking for basically like because like
we have a visitor.
Hey, how you doing, Marin? Is that Marin? Yeah, I can't see. Yeah,
this is the one who broke my glasses. Can you say hi? Sorry to interrupt the question.
No, it's that, you know, basically like someone like Dawkins is confused scientific understanding of the world with technology, right? Mm-hmm. Like, do you know what I mean? Like he sees the world solely in terms of what is experimentally manipulable, like what can be managed and used, right? And philosophy is not going to help you to manage and use the world in that way, right? So I think in some ways it really is useless in Dawkins' sense. So this is why I think like these kinds of new atheists are just turning us over to a consumerist machine anyway. Okay.
Right.
But I mean, but you know, in more fairness to the question, does philosophy have a contribution to make to like positive knowledge? Yeah, I believe it does. Right. And I think, you know, that like the Dawkins types who think like it's been replaced by this other discipline, I think they're deeply misunderstanding the history of science. Okay, right. And I also think that they are they're not seeing like the kind of ultimate incoherence of the kind of ungrounded naturalism that they're attempting to have.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So thank you for joining us, Marin. This is our youngest, by the way. Yeah. You broke my glasses. This is why it's all goofy like that, huh? Yeah, I mean, like if it's just scientism, we already know the issues with scientism, ontological or epistemological. We've rehearsed those a million times. But like, I guess there's a couple ways that there's like kind of two major rival views, right, Marin, on philosophy and science. One is that whatever else philosophy does, it does it on the outskirts, and it will eventually be overtaken by science. It doesn't contribute anything significantly useful. Yeah. And of course, like that always reduces itself to the problem of scientism. It's always either trivial or self-defeating. It's going to be trivial in as much as it just expands the definition of science to essentially include philosophy, right? In which case, okay, there's not really a problem. Or it's going to be self-defeating in as much as it's going to be making a philosophical claim that it cannot substantiate according to its own restrictions, right? And the other view, I think is the right view, is that philosophy and science are as distinct, if not more distinct, than as the different sciences are from themselves. Yep. And that there are distinct sets of philosophical questions that have properly philosophical answers that we can know with either high probability or certainty, right? Yep. Metaphysical questions, ethical questions, questions about the nature and condition of knowledge, right? These are not properly scientific questions, and they're all foundational. Philosophy is the only discipline that can interrogate its own foundations fully, right? Science, in just the common understanding of the hypothetical deductive method, comes full of assumptions, right? About the world, about the enterprise itself, that it cannot justify, right? And even in the findings of science, we need ways to make conceptual sense, and that's why we have philosophy of science. So anybody who says it, the pinky raising response that Jim gave is correct, right? Oh yeah, it is useless, right? Like that is the good response. But really, fundamentally, Dawkins is just an idiot, right? When it comes to this stuff, he really just doesn't know what he's talking about. Mm-hmm.
And the thing also is I don't like to think of philosophy anymore in terms of disciplinary terms that have been imposed on us by the structure of the modern university, right? Okay. It is not an academic discipline the way, like, you know, organic chemistry is an academic discipline, right? Okay, do you see what I mean? And when the term was coined, right, in Greece, right, it wasn't with the mind to a specific academic department, right? And a lot of these debates about like whether philosophy has a contribution, this has to do with just like really goes down to like university politics and like who's going to get the grants and stuff like that. Right? Yeah.
Right. Yes. Okay, Jim, I know you got to start rolling here.
Yeah.
You want to pick one more to close out with?
I don't have one. I'd have to scroll through quite a bit. Do you have one you want to hit?
There's just a lot of really good questions, guys. Sorry, we're not gonna be able to get through it all. Let me say, Yate says, "What's your opinion on who the next Bond will be?" I don't care. The last movie was terrible. I'm done with Bond. Did you hear the Scorpions' new song "Peacemaker"? I didn't know the Scorpions were still making new songs. That's amazing.
That's right.
Catholic Base says, Pat, were you a Ron Paul kind of libertarian? I have great sympathies with him. Yeah, I mean, like, when I was in my libertarian days in high school was when I made my strong libertarian turn. I remember reading a lot of Ron Paul back in those days and being influenced by him. I don't think I ever became the strong form anarcho-capitalist thinkers that many who follow Ron Paul become. But no, certainly he was a guy that sort of kind of like passed me off to the general school of Austrian economics, which I still have a lot of sympathies with, even though I wouldn't say I consider myself like entirely in that camp. I think actually economics is more empirical than a lot of Austrians want to admit. But cool. All right, Jim. Well, we don't want to make you late for your jiu-jitsu, so why don't you just make your announcements?
I gotta go get choked.
Got to go get choked.
Someone did ask about a podcast I mentioned doing. I think what the listener means is a podcast I was going to do with one of my colleagues here, and we're still going to do it, but be patient because he has baby twins, so his time is tough to come by, and but he's going to be on sabbatical next semester, so there might be more time then.
Sweet. Well, looking forward to that. All right, gentle listeners, we will be back with you maybe Monday. Are we doing Marxist Monday with Marcuse again?
Yeah, I like the Marxist Monday now. Like,
right.
Nice.
All right, Jim.
Then eventually we'll have Wittgenstein Wednesday or something. Yeah.
We'll figure out. We'll get the alliteration going. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. Peace.